Friends, you must have seen the planning of the professor and money heist. But after hearing the planning of the man whose story I am about to tell today, you might forget even the professor. He was neither a thief nor a gangster. Instead, he was an ordinary college teacher who created such a master plan to free his wife from jail that the police, doctors, and the entire system unknowingly moved according to his strategy. He created false reports. He cut phone lines. He misled the authorities. And he played every move as if life itself was a game of chess, because for him this was not about stealing. This was the final battle of love. The story begins on a dark and silent night when a college teacher named John Brennan is nervously driving his car at high speed. On the back seat of his car lies an injured dealer who was accidentally harmed during an encounter. Now the question is, how far can a simple college teacher go to break someone out of jail and escape with his wife? You will understand the answer only after hearing his brilliant plan. Even the police were shocked when they learned about it. The story goes back 3 years, when John was living a peaceful life in his beautiful home with his wife Laura and their son, Luke. Laura had diabetes, so every morning she would take her insulin injection. But one day John noticed a small stain of blood on her jacket. She immediately rushed to wash it in the sink. But before she could understand anything, the door burst open. The police entered and, without asking any questions, detained Laura on charges of eliminating someone. Later, the court declared Laura guilty and sentenced her to life imprisonment. But there was still no solid evidence that could force the authorities to reinvestigate. In fact, every piece of evidence pointed against Laura. One of her office colleagues had seen her leaving the location where the incident took place. Traces of blood were found on her jacket and her fingerprints were discovered on the tool used during the incident. Seeing all this, the lawyer clearly explained everything to John. After hearing it, John made up his mind and said firmly that no matter what happened, he would bring her out. He then went to meet Laura and told her what the lawyer had said. Tears filled John's eyes, and seeing him, Laura understood everything without a word. Hopelessness appeared on her face. She started crying as if the last ray of hope inside her had faded away completely. But destiny seemed to be testing John. That night, he received the news that Laura had been suddenly admitted to the hospital. He rushed there without wasting a moment, but the hospital staff did not allow him to meet her. John argued with the doctor and the officers for a long time. Eventually, he was allowed to meet her for a short while. When he went inside, he saw Laura handcuffed to the bed, her wrists wrapped in bandages. John understood everything at a single glance. Laura had probably lost all hope. At that moment, something broke inside John, and he silently promised himself that even if the entire world stood against him, he would still get Laura out of that place. Now, John began preparing for his mission. He started reading every book written on escaping from prison. He began collecting every small and large piece of information he could find. Then he went to meet a man named Damon who had escaped from prison 7 times. Damon explained to him that if he truly wanted to escape, he needed to keep an open mind. He said that inside a jail's daily routine, one must find tiny loopholes to crack the system. And most importantly, he must choose his destination in advance, a place where very few people go, a place with no tourists, a route far away from buses, trains, or airports. Because when the system collapses, the search always begins from those areas first. Apart from this, he would need high-quality fake documents that no one could easily identify. He would also have to move to another state quietly. The most important point was to keep all the money in cash so that no digital transaction could expose his location. This meant he needed enough cash to survive for about 5 years. By then, the case would cool down. and the search pressure would decrease. The most difficult part of his entire plan was crossing the bridges of Pittsburgh. After the events of major security alerts, the authorities there had learned to seal the entire city within just 15 minutes. Along with this, he would have to stay away from his parents and friends forever. And if a situation ever forced him, he might even have to finish someone to protect his plan. Hearing all this, John returned home and began calculating each step. He pasted maps and photographs on an entire wall. Whenever he visited Lara in jail, he carefully observed every tiny detail. He noticed a hole in the elevator ceiling. He noticed workers repairing a leakage on the opposite side. He observed which trucks stopped there daily. John became so deeply involved in this plan that even while teaching in college, he secretly checked these details on his laptop. Finally, he decided to sell his house because he needed a large amount of money to execute the plan. He now needed fake documents. So he began visiting a dangerous part of the city. There he started buying OxyContin from a local dealer and casually asked for the address of someone who makes false passports. After many attempts, he found a man who told him to go to a bar and meet a certain dealer. But John was tricked. As soon as he reached there, a group of goons attacked him and took all his money. A man named Mike, who was sitting in the same bar, witnessed everything. A few days later, John returned to the same area. But this time, bikes began chasing him. He somehow managed to reach his home. Just then, the doorbell rang. John opened the door and Mike was standing outside. Mike said, "I can arrange a fake passport for you." John gave him some photographs and advanced cash. He then told him in a firm tone not to come back to his house again. He said he would collect the passport from another location. Mike agreed, but before leaving, he warned that if he didn't arrive on time, John should quietly walk away without saying anything. After this, John begins preparing for the next step of his plan. He buys a device from a shop and learns how to use it from the shopkeeper. The next day he reaches the location Mike had given him to collect the passport. After waiting for a long time, he realizes that Mike is late. But even then, he doesn't leave. He keeps waiting. After some time, a car passes by and right after that, Mike arrives. Mike says angrily, "You're still sitting here. The car that just passed was a police vehicle." He then gives John the fake documents and adds, "John, you've become obsessed with this plan. This obsession will push you into a massive mistake one day." After this, John learns how to make a bump key, a key capable of opening almost any lock. He creates the key himself after watching an online tutorial. He decides to use it the next time he visits the jail. On the day he arrives at the jail, he places the bump key along with the rest of his keys in the metal detector tray. As he walks past the detector, he quietly picks up the bump key before the officer can notice. John deliberately stays at the back of the group while walking. As soon as he gets a chance, he tries to use the key on the elevator lock, but unfortunately, the key breaks and half of it gets stuck inside. John immediately throws away the other half he is holding and stands as if nothing happened. Within moments, a police officer arrives and notices the broken key. Interrogation of all visitors begins. When John's turn comes, he cleverly looks at the security footage and says, "I'm not visible in this clip. This is a tall man, right? I was standing behind him." Hearing this, the officer becomes suspicious. But suspicion alone isn't enough to take action. So they allow John to leave. As soon as John steps out of the prison gates, panic overwhelms him. Detective Queenan sees this and begins suspecting John even more. From that moment, Queenan quietly starts monitoring him, but John remains unaware of it. Meanwhile, John continues selling his household items little by little. Whenever his brother visits, John sits quietly and hides his stress, so no one can understand what he is planning. One afternoon, John takes his son Luke to the park. There, Luke's friend Carrie's mother invites him to Carrie's birthday party. But John's mind is already lost in his own world, focused only on his escape plan. During this time, he notices a new medical van stopping outside the jail. At that moment, a brilliant idea forms in his mind. Now he plans to execute his escape using that van. He begins researching Laura's diabetes carefully. Then he follows the medical van for several days and notes the exact timing of its arrival and departure. He also learns from the internet how to open a car lock using a tennis ball. The next day, he used the same method again. He opened the door of the medical van with a tennis ball and took photos of Laura's medical reports from inside. Later, he prepared a fake report showing that Laura's health was in a very critical condition. Few days later, when John visited Laura, she gave him terrible news. In 3 days, she was going to be transferred to an even tougher facility. Hearing this, John felt as if the ground slipped from under his feet. He now had only 3 days left to complete his plan. The biggest problem was that his house still hadn't sold and he had no money to arrange their escape. Eventually, John picked up his device and left to rob a bank. But even after reaching there, he couldn't bring himself to do it. His hands began trembling and he couldn't gather the courage. He stood outside the bank for a while. Then, he silently walked away. Later, he visited Laura again and said he would appeal against her transfer. Hearing this, Laura became angry because John still wasn't accepting the reality. Laura said, "You're living in a dream, John. You believe I can get out of here. But the truth is it will never happen." To stop John from risking everything, Laura finally confessed with tears that she was responsible for the incident. She wanted John to move on and rebuild his life with someone else. But John still didn't believe her. He went to meet Laura again, this time with even stronger determination. He told her, "Don't lose courage. I will get you out of here." Now John needed money urgently. As soon as night fell, he returned to the same dangerous locality. There, he followed a dealer and reached his boss's house. As soon as he got the chance, John grabbed the dealer and pushed him inside. During the struggle, the house dog bit John's leg, but John pointed his device at them and frightened them, saying, "Alex, lock the dog in the room right now." When John demanded money, Alex nervously handed him everything he had out of fear. Alex laughed coldly and said, "You don't have the courage to eliminate anyone." You couldn't even react to the dog. John then poured whiskey on the floor and ignited it with a spark. As soon as flames rose, the atmosphere filled with fear and tension. Alex panicked and said there was a child in the house. He ran upstairs to save the child, but John also took the foreign dealer as a shield and followed him. In reality, John's instinct was right. Alex had gone upstairs to grab a device. As soon as Alex fired at John, the shot struck the dealer instead. Alex tried to aim again, but before he could press the trigger, John fired once and neutralized him. After that, John searched every room of the house. Soon, he found a bag full of cash. While running out, he noticed the dealer was still alive. He lay on the ground groaning in pain and asking for help. This is where the story begins, when John was taking the badly injured dealer in his car. The tail light of his car got broken on the way. John thought about taking him to the hospital, but before he could do anything, the dealer passed away inside the car. Eventually, John left the dealer's body at a bus stop. Then, as planned, he went to a parking lot and started cutting the fence. Meanwhile, Alex's house caught fire. Within some time, the police arrived at the location. They found bloodstains on the ground and a broken taillight as evidence. After finishing his work, John went to his parents' house to spend the night. When his father picked up John's bag, he noticed the plane tickets inside. At that moment, He understood what John was planning to do. Before leaving the next morning, John told Luke to hug his grandparents. He knew it might be their last meeting. In the end, John's father hugged him tightly and said goodbye with a heavy heart. Finally, the day had come. John was ready to execute his plan. He packed all his belongings and tore up his maps and papers. He placed them in 2 separate garbage bags. After this, John reached the medical center. Without wasting time, he disconnected the phone lines. Then he quietly entered a van and replaced Laura's blood samples. The real report was now swapped with a fake report created by him. John then dropped Luke at his friend Carrie's birthday party. Before leaving, he told Carrie's mother, "If I get a little late, Luke has his grandparents' numbers in his pocket." Meanwhile, when the hospital doctors saw the blood reports, they sensed something was wrong. They tried calling the lab, but the phone line was disconnected. Without waiting further, they admitted Lara to the hospital based on the reports. Here, the police identified the car model using the broken taillight. After further investigation, all the evidence pointed toward John. As soon as they arrived at John's house, they found the wall where he had drawn all his plans. Meanwhile, the detectives received news that Lara was being hospitalized. They became increasingly suspicious of John's intentions and decided to rush to the hospital as soon as possible. But John had already arrived. Wearing a doctor's coat, he entered Laura's room. He threatened the officers with a harmful device and forced them to unlock Laura's handcuffs. He then tied the officers to chairs. But Lara refused to escape with John. This enraged him. He angrily said, "Then call your son. Tell him his parents won't be coming back safely today." Hearing this, Lara realized how dangerous the situation had become. She understood that if she didn't run, John could actually harm anyone. Finally, she quickly put on the clothes John had given her, but then a nurse spotted them. They immediately entered the elevator. The nurse shouted and alerted security. Meanwhile, John and Lara quickly removed their white coats and headed straight for the lobby, but the detectives were already waiting there. Seeing them, John quickly pressed the button for another floor and the detectives ran down the stairs to follow. As soon as the elevator door opened, John cleverly threw their coats near the staircase and re-entered the elevator. Seeing the coats, the detectives assumed John and Lara had rushed down the stairs toward the parking lot, so they ran there immediately. But the truth was that John and then Lara had returned to the lobby and within moments exited through the main door. Crossing the street, John changed into his jacket and vanished into a crowd of baseball fans. The crowd was heading toward the station, and among them, John and Lara quietly boarded the train. But the trouble wasn't over. John knew the police would be waiting at the next station, so he suddenly pulled the train's emergency brake. As soon as the train stopped, they both jumped off and found themselves in front of the same parking lot where John had arrived a few days earlier. A hole in the fence proved useful. They entered through the same opening where John's car was already parked. Without wasting any time, John accelerated the car to full speed. They managed to cross the first bridge just in time. The next step was to pick up Luke, but this is where John made a small mistake. When he arrived at Carrie's house, he discovered that the party was in full swing and they hadn't returned yet. Meanwhile, the police were searching John's neighborhood and soon found the entire plan inside the garbage bags. John accelerated and headed for the party venue. But at the last moment, he changed his route. He told Lara, "If we delay any longer, all the roads will be blocked and we won't be able to reach Luke." Then he whispered, "We may have to leave him here. His grandparents will take care of him." But Lara was completely unwilling to live without her son. Suddenly, she opened the car door and leaned her head outside. At that moment, a truck was speeding toward them. A major collision was just seconds away, but John swerved the car just in time, and they both narrowly avoided the danger. John immediately stopped the car and told Lara that she was right. He also couldn't imagine a life without his son. Finally, he decided to turn back. They both headed straight for the train station and took Luke with them. Now, they had only one goal: get past the checkpoint. Then, suddenly, a brilliant idea came to John. He drove straight to the train station and offered a ride to an elderly couple standing there. All three of them got into the car and headed toward the checkpoint. The guards were looking for a young couple and their child, but John's car had two elderly passengers as well, so no one suspected anything unusual. The guards glanced at the vehicle and let them pass without checking. John breathed a deep sigh of relief. After driving a short distance, he safely dropped the elderly couple in the city. Then he headed straight toward the Canadian airport. Meanwhile, preparations were being made to broadcast their images as fugitives on TV channels. But luck was on John's side. Their passports had already been verified. And at that moment, the security guard's shift changed. The new guard had no idea that John and Lara had already passed. Meanwhile, at John's house, when the police started sorting through the papers found in the trash, they discovered a picture of Haiti. They immediately ordered all flights to Haiti to be stopped. But this was actually John's real strategy. After a while, Queenan realized she had only uncovered half of the plan. John had intentionally kept the remaining half hidden to mislead the police. In reality, the Haiti clue was just a diversion to ensure John, Lara, and their son Luke reached safety while the police were busy elsewhere. And that is exactly what happened. The police continued searching in Haiti. Meanwhile, John, Lara, and Luke boarded a flight to Venezuela. A few days later, we see the three of them beginning a new life in the city of Caracas. There was no police pressure, no danger, only peace and love. Could you stand by someone the way John stood by Lara? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Your support means everything to us.